Wilson, a 35-year-old seasoned pilot, had flown countless miles across the world. He had everything going for him: a steady career, respect among his peers, and a calm demeanor that made him an excellent leader in the cockpit. But beneath that calm exterior, Wilson carried a secret that no one knew about: his forbidden affair with Aliana, a charming and mysterious 28-year-old flight attendant. It had all started during a long-haul flight to Paris. Aliana had caught his eye from the moment she joined the airline 6 months ago. Her graceful manner and easygoing personality drew everyone in. But there was something about the way she looked at Wilson that made him feel alive in ways his everyday routine never could. She was beautiful, confident, and dangerous in ways he couldn't fully understand at the time. Their affair began quietly: flirtatious glances in the crew lounge, stolen conversations after flights, secret messages exchanged through burner phones. For Wilson, it felt like an escape from the pressures of his life, a hidden thrill he didn't want to give up. Aliana was different from anyone he had ever met. Her sense of adventure pulled him in, and soon enough they were spending nights together in hotel rooms during layovers, hiding from the world. But what started as an exciting secret quickly turned into something deeper. Aliana began to share more of herself with Wilson, revealing stories about her troubled past and how she was trying to find her way in life. She confided in him, made him feel like he was her only safe place. Wilson, in turn, began to fall for her. He couldn't resist her charm and believed that there might be more to their relationship than just passion. However, Wilson never realized that Aliana had secrets of her own, darker, more dangerous ones. She wasn't just a flight attendant looking for excitement. Behind her bright smile and engaging personality, Aliana was involved in something much larger, something that would ultimately pull Wilson into a world he was unprepared for. At the time, Wilson saw their relationship as something thrilling but harmless. He didn't know that Aliana had been slowly manipulating him, inching him closer to her hidden agenda. Aliana made sure to never show her cards too early. She kept Wilson in the dark, making him believe that their affair was just a passionate secret between two people who couldn't resist each other. But things were about to change. Aliana was about to ask Wilson for a favor, one that seemed small on the surface but would soon plunge him into danger. For now, Wilson was blinded by his feelings. He didn't see the storm that was brewing, or the fact that the woman he thought he was getting to know was someone far more dangerous than he could ever imagine. As their affair deepened, Wilson unknowingly stepped closer to the point of no return. The first request. A few months into their secret relationship, Wilson had fallen hard for Aliana. Her presence in his life was like something that kept him looking forward to every flight they shared. He thought their affair was just about passion, something thrilling to keep his life exciting. But Aliana had been setting the stage for something much bigger. It happened one night after a long flight to Singapore. They had spent the evening in their usual hotel room, hidden away from prying eyes. Wilson, exhausted but happy, lay beside Aliana, who seemed lost in thought. She was quieter than usual, her mind clearly elsewhere. After a few minutes of silence, she turned to him. "Wilson, I need your help with something," she said softly, her voice laced with an edge of hesitation. Wilson, not thinking much of it, smiled and replied, "Anything for you, Aliana. What do you need?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I have a friend, someone who's in a bit of trouble. He needs help moving some cargo on one of your flights. It's nothing dangerous, just some personal belongings he wants to relocate without going through customs. Can you help?" Wilson frowned, caught off guard by the request. "Cargo? What kind of cargo are we talking about?" he asked, his instincts kicking in. He had always played by the rules in his career, never cutting corners or bending laws. This didn't sit right with him. Aliana leaned in, her voice low and sweet. "It's nothing illegal, I promise. Just some sensitive items he doesn't want flagged. A couple of boxes, that's all. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. You know I trust you." Wilson's heart raced as he listened to her. He knew this was a line he shouldn't cross, but the look in her eyes, The vulnerability she displayed made him hesitate. Aliana had never asked him for anything before. And after all, how bad could it be? It was just a couple of boxes, she said. I don't know, Aliana. This could put me in serious trouble if anyone finds out, Wilson replied, his tone uncertain. I've never done anything like this. Aliana placed her hand on her grip firm. Wilson, I wouldn't put you in harm's way. It's just a favor. Please, for me. Her words tugged at him. The way she looked at him made him feel needed, important. He had grown to care for her, and the idea of letting her down made him uncomfortable. Against his better judgment, Wilson slowly nodded. All right, he said. Just this once. Aliana's face lit up. Thank you, Wilson. I knew I could count on you. But behind her warm smile, there was something cold in her eyes, something Wilson didn't notice at the time. The next morning, Aliana handed him the details for the cargo, keeping everything casual as if nothing unusual was happening. Wilson told himself it was just a favor, a one-time thing, but deep down, a sense of unease began to creep into his mind. As they boarded the plane for their next flight, Wilson's thoughts lingered on the decision he had made. He had no idea that this seemingly small favor would be the first step in a deadly game of betrayal, one that would cost him far more than he could ever imagine. The unseen consequences. Wilson carried out Aliana's request without a hitch. The cargo, a couple of nondescript boxes, went unnoticed, and the flight proceeded as usual. Everything seemed normal, just as Aliana had promised. But Wilson couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that followed him after that day. Weeks passed, and Wilson tried to push the incident out of his mind. He convinced himself that it had been a harmless favor, a one-time thing. But Aliana had other plans. She grew more secretive, often whispering to people on her phone when she thought Wilson wasn't paying attention. Her behavior started to change, and Wilson began to notice things he had previously ignored. The way she seemed more connected to certain passengers, how she'd disappear for longer stretches between flights, always meeting with someone outside of work. It wasn't long before Aliana approached Wilson again. Wilson, she said one evening after a flight, my friend has another request. Wilson's heart sank. He knew what was coming, and every instinct told him to refuse. Aliana, we talked about this. I did that one favor, but I can't keep doing this. It's too risky. Aliana's smile faded, replaced by an expression of concern. Wilson, I need you to trust me. This is the last time, I swear. My friend is in a lot of trouble, and we can help him out. It's just one more shipment. Wilson stood up, pacing the room. I can't do this again. You don't understand what kind of position you're putting me in. But Aliana was persistent. She played on his emotions, reminding him of how much she cared for him, how grateful she was for his help. Slowly, her words began to wear him down. Wilson felt trapped, torn between his feelings for Aliana and the growing sense of danger he could no longer ignore. Please, Wilson, after this, we'll be done. I promise, she said, her voice soft and pleading. Against his better judgment, Wilson agreed again. The pull of his feelings for her was too strong, and he couldn't bear to disappoint her. But this time, something felt different. The cargo wasn't as small or discreet as before. It was larger, heavier, and came with no explanation. Wilson asked no questions, but his mind raced with possibilities. During the flight, Wilson found it hard to concentrate. Every sound in the cockpit, every glance from the flight attendants felt like it carried hidden meaning. Was he being watched? Did someone know what he was doing? As they landed safely and the cargo was offloaded, Wilson breathed a sigh of relief, but the sense of foreboding didn't leave him. He was deep into something he didn't understand, and he knew that Aliana was hiding more than she let on. The next morning, Wilson found a letter waiting for him in his locker at work. It wasn't signed, but the message was clear: stay quiet or else. His heart pounded as he read the words. He looked around. but no one seemed out of the ordinary. Panic began to set in. He had always been careful, always played by the rules, and now he was tangled in something far beyond his control. And for the first time, Wilson started to realize that Aliana's world was much darker and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. He didn't know who to trust anymore, not even the woman he thought he loved. A dangerous discovery. Wilson's life began to spiral after receiving the anonymous threat. Every step he took felt like walking on broken glass. He tried to confront Aliana about it, but she brushed it off, telling him not to worry. "They're just making sure everything stays quiet," she said casually, as though their situation was normal. But Wilson knew better. This was anything but normal. Aliana continued to behave as though nothing was wrong, but Wilson couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. He started watching her more closely, noticing how she interacted with certain passengers and how she seemed to have a secret life beyond their relationship. The more he observed, the more Wilson realized just how little he actually knew about her. One evening, after a particularly tense flight, Wilson decided to follow Aliana. She had told him she was meeting some friends for dinner, but his gut told him something else. He trailed her from the airport, keeping a safe distance as she made her way through the city. His heart pounded with every step, unsure of what he would find. Aliana eventually arrived at a small, dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of town. Wilson parked his car across the street and watched as she entered the building. After a few minutes, a man joined her at the table. He wasn't someone Wilson recognized, but he looked dangerous, sharp features, a confident air, and an aura of control. From his car, Wilson watched them talk for what felt like hours. Aliana appeared nervous, gesturing with her hands, while the man remained calm, barely moving. Wilson's heart sank. This wasn't a casual dinner with friends. This was something else entirely, something much darker. As they finished their conversation, the man handed Aliana a small package. She slipped it into her bag and stood up, glancing around before leaving the cafe. Wilson ducked down in his seat as she passed by, his mind racing. He had no idea what was in the package, but one thing was clear. Aliana was involved in something dangerous, and he was now part of it. Wilson followed her back to her apartment, his thoughts swirling. He parked a few blocks away, needing time to think. Who was the man she had met? What was in that package? And most importantly, how deep had Aliana dragged him into her world of secrets? The following day, Wilson confronted her, unable to hold back his fear any longer. "Aliana, I know something's going on. I saw you last night with that man. Who is he? What's in the package?" Aliana's eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly regained her composure. "Wilson, you shouldn't have followed me," she said coldly, her voice different from the soft, loving tone she usually used. "I told you not to worry about this. You promised to trust me." "Trust you? I'm getting threats, I'm hiding illegal cargo, and you're meeting dangerous people in secret. How am I supposed to trust you when you won't even tell me what's going on?" Wilson's voice was filled with frustration and fear. Aliana took a deep breath, her face hardening. "Wilson, I've protected you so far, haven't I? This is bigger than you think, and it's safer if you don't know all the details." But Wilson had had enough. "No, Aliana, I'm done with this. You've dragged me into something I never wanted to be part of. I need answers, or I'm out." Aliana stared at him for a long moment before finally speaking. "Wilson, if you walk away now, you won't just be leaving me. You'll be putting yourself in danger. These people don't let anyone walk away. Not you, not me. We're in this together now, whether you like it or not." Wilson's heart sank as he realized the depth of the trap he had walked into. He was no longer just a pilot caught in a risky favor. He was now a pawn in a dangerous game, and there might be no way out. Trapped in the web. Wilson felt like his world was closing in. The more he tried to distance himself from Aliana's secret dealings, the tighter the grip of danger around him became. Her words echoed in his mind. "You can't walk away." He knew she was right. The anonymous threats, the dangerous people she was involved with. There was no easy escape. Days turned into weeks, and Wilson couldn't focus on anything but the growing weight of the situation. Every time he boarded a flight, he wondered if it would be his last. His once peaceful life as a pilot now felt like a time bomb waiting to explode. Aliana's behavior didn't help. She became more distant, more involved in whatever she was mixed up in. Her promises of safety felt hollow. One night, after yet another sleepless evening, Wilson decided he couldn't take it anymore. He had to find a way out. He wasn't willing to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for the people in the shadows to catch up to him. He made up his mind to confront Aliana one last time. They met in her apartment, the tension between them thicker than ever. Aliana looked tired, worn down by whatever burdens she was carrying, but Wilson had run out of sympathy. "I need the truth, Aliana," he said, his voice firm. "I'm not asking anymore. I'm demanding it." Aliana stared at him, her eyes heavy with something he couldn't quite place. Fear, guilt, maybe even regret. "You're right, Wilson. You deserve to know." Wilson's heart pounded as she began to speak, revealing the truth he had dreaded. Aliana wasn't just a pawn in this game. She was far more involved than he could have imagined. The man he had seen her with, the package he had helped her transport, the shady dealings, they were all part of a larger scheme. Aliana had been using her position as a hostess to smuggle illegal goods across borders, and the people she worked for were part of an international crime syndicate. "I didn't want you to get involved, Wilson," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I had no choice. They were watching me. They knew about us, and if I didn't get you to help, they would have come after both of us." Wilson's blood ran cold. "You're telling me you dragged me into this to save yourself?" Aliana nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought I could protect you, but it's gotten out of control. They don't let people walk away, Wilson. They won't let us walk away." The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled in, his mind racing, struggling to process everything. His love for Aliana was real, but so was the danger. He couldn't believe how far things had gone, how much she had hidden from him. "I can't keep doing this," Wilson finally said, his voice shaking. "I don't care what they do. I'm not going to be part of this anymore." Aliana looked at him with desperation. "Wilson, if you leave, they'll come after you. They'll come after both of us." "I'm already in danger," he replied coldly, "and it's because of you." Aliana's face crumpled, but Wilson couldn't stay any longer. He walked out of her apartment, leaving her behind in a world he no longer wanted any part of. But as he drove away, a sinking feeling settled in his chest. He knew it wasn't going to be that easy. The crime syndicate wouldn't just let him go. They would be watching, waiting, and soon, Wilson would have to face the consequences of Aliana's betrayal. Wilson couldn't escape the gnawing sense of dread that followed him everywhere. He had tried to distance himself from Aliana and her dangerous world, but the reality of their situation loomed over him like a dark cloud. Days passed, but there was no peace. Instead, there were more anonymous calls, more veiled threats, each one more terrifying than the last. Aliana, too, seemed to be spiraling. She didn't reach out to Wilson as often anymore, but when she did, it was always filled with panic. "They're getting suspicious, Wilson," she warned during one brief call. "They think you're going to turn on them." The problem was, Wilson had no idea what he was supposed to do. He wasn't built for this world of secrecy and crime. All he had ever wanted was a normal life, a stable career, and maybe, just maybe, a future with Aliana. But that dream had been shattered by her lies and the criminal web she had entangled them both in. One evening, while alone in his apartment, Wilson heard a knock on his door. His heart leaped into his throat. No one visited him without calling first. He approached the door cautiously, peeking through the peephole. A man stood on the other side, one of the syndicate's enforcers. He recognized him from the cafe where Aliana had met her contact. Wilson's hands trembled as he opened the door. The man stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His eyes were cold, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk, Wilson." Wilson's throat was dry. He could barely find his voice. "About what?" The man's gaze bore into him. "You've been acting strange, pulling away. We don't like that." He paused, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "People who think they can run from us never get very far." Wilson's heart raced. He knew what was coming. This was their final warning, his last chance to fall in line or face the consequences. "I don't want any trouble," Wilson said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I just want out." The man chuckled darkly. "Out? There is no out, Wilson. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. And if you try to run or turn on us..." He didn't finish the sentence, but the threat hung heavy in the air. Wilson clenched his fists, anger and fear swirling inside him. "What do you want from me?" The man took a step closer, his voice cold. "We want loyalty, from you and from Aliana. If either of you betray us, you'll both regret it." With that, the man turned and left, leaving Wilson standing there paralyzed by fear. His worst nightmare had come true. He was trapped, and there was no way out, not without consequences. That night, Wilson sat in the darkness of his apartment, his mind racing. He couldn't stay silent forever, and yet defying the syndicate would mean putting his life and Aliana's at risk. His only option was to act smart, to find a way to get out without alerting them. But time was running out, and one wrong move could be fatal. Wilson couldn't shake the sense of impending doom. The threats were no longer just words. They were creeping into his life, making it impossible to function. His once routine flights felt heavy with fear, every passenger a potential spy, every takeoff a gamble with his life. He knew that Aliana had placed him in an impossible situation, but cutting ties with her hadn't made him any safer. The syndicate was watching. One evening, after a long day at work, Wilson came home to find a letter slipped under his door. His stomach twisted as he unfolded the paper. The message was short and chilling. One last job or else. They didn't need to sign it. He knew exactly who it was from. It was clear they weren't going to let him walk away easily. He was trapped, with no way out but to comply. Desperation gripped him. He called Aliana, his voice shaking with anger and fear. "What have you gotten me into?" he shouted into the phone. "They want me to do another job, Aliana. I can't keep playing this game. I'm not you. I'm not built for this." Aliana's voice cracked on the other end of the line. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Wilson. I thought I could protect you. But now they're coming for both of us. We don't have much time." Wilson's mind raced as Aliana explained the situation. The syndicate had decided that Wilson was a liability, someone too close to their operations to be allowed to walk away freely. They wanted him to help smuggle another shipment on his next international flight. Aliana had managed to buy them a little time, but it was clear that the clock was ticking. "We have to find a way out," Wilson said, panic rising in his voice. "I can't keep doing this, Aliana. I can't." But Aliana's voice was calm, almost resigned. "There's no way out, Wilson, not unless we deliver what they want." Wilson's heart sank. He realized then that Aliana had made her choice. She was too deep in the syndicate's web to escape, and now she had dragged him into it as well. The love they had shared felt distant, almost meaningless compared to the danger they now faced. The next few days were a blur of tension and fear. Wilson knew he couldn't do what they asked. Smuggling the shipment meant crossing a line he could never come back from, but refusing would seal his fate. Then one night, just as he was preparing for what could be his final flight, he received a call. It was Aliana, her voice shaking with urgency. "Meet me," she whispered. "I've found a way out, but you have to trust me." Wilson hesitated, torn between hope and the overwhelming fear that it was already too late. A deadly betrayal. Wilson met Aliana in a secluded spot near the airport. His nerves stretched thin. It was late, the streets deserted, the air thick with tension. Aliana looked as haunted as he felt, her eyes darting nervously as she approached him. "What's the plan?" Wilson asked, his voice edged with desperation. Aliana swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly. "I've made a deal. I told them we would deliver the shipment, but after that, we're free. They agreed to let us go if we pull this off." Wilson's stomach churned with doubt. "How can you trust them? How do you know they'll keep their word?" Aliana hesitated, her eyes filling with a sadness Wilson hadn't seen before. "I don't know," she admitted, "but it's our only chance. If we don't go through with it, they'll kill us both." Wilson stared at her, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He didn't trust her plan, didn't trust the syndicate, but he was out of options. They had him cornered, and Aliana was the only one who knew how to navigate their dangerous world. They prepared for the flight together, each move filled with an undercurrent of fear. Aliana seemed distant, her mind elsewhere, as they went through the motions. Wilson tried to reassure himself that this would be the last time, one final terrible act before they could escape the nightmare they had been thrust into. But as the hours passed and the moment drew nearer, something didn't sit right with Wilson. He noticed Aliana's furtive glances, the way she kept checking her phone. Doubt gnawed at him. Was she hiding something? Was this all part of another plan he wasn't privy to? As they arrived at the airport, Wilson's instincts screamed at him that something was wrong, his every sense heightened. He looked at Aliana one last time. "Are you sure we can trust this?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Aliana's face fell, her expression caught between guilt and fear. "You just have to trust me, Wilson, please." But in that moment, Wilson realized the awful truth. Aliana had betrayed him. The deal wasn't to save both of them, it was to save herself. She had struck a bargain with the syndicate to turn Wilson over as a scapegoat in exchange for her own freedom. Before he could react, the trap was sprung. Armed men appeared out of nowhere, surrounding them in a flash. Wilson's heart raced as he saw the cold realization in Aliana's eyes. This was the end. One of the men stepped forward, gun in hand, aimed directly at Wilson. "We don't take kindly to people trying to leave the business," he said with a cruel smile. "Thanks for making this easy, Aliana." Wilson's blood ran cold as he looked at her. "You sold me out," he whispered, disbelief and betrayal tearing through him. Tears welled in Aliana's eyes, but she didn't deny it. "I didn't have a choice," she murmured. "I'm sorry." Wilson's world shattered. There was no time for anger, no time for escape. The gunshot echoed in the night, and everything went black. Aliana watched as Wilson crumpled to the ground, his life slipping away. The men disappeared into the shadows, leaving her standing alone in the aftermath of her betrayal. She had saved herself, but the guilt would follow her forever, and Wilson's death would haunt her every step. She decided to collaborate with few trusted syndicates who wanted out. In the final confrontation, she found herself face to face with the man who had pulled the trigger on Wilson. She exposed his crimes, leading to his arrest and the dismantling of the syndicate that had haunted her for so long. As the dust settled and the syndicate fell apart, Aliana knew she had avenged Wilson's death. Though the pain of loss would never fully fade, she found solace in the fact that she had turned her betrayal into a force for good. The journey toward healing would be long, but she would carry Wilson's memory with her always, a reminder of the man who had once. Thank you for being with me until this video. Subscribe to our channel to see the videos we publish every day. And in order not to miss the videos, be sure to press the bell. Thank you to all dear ones.